The first snow of the season has fallen, which means we are officially in full-time mini painting season here on the podcast known as
Trapped Under Plastic, the podcast where Ninjon and Mini Egg paint Charging Hippo's Warehouse of Shame. What?
Charging Hippo is the person that made that comment. So
you wish Charging Hippo. You freaking wish.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see what you did. You tried to get us to agree to it by reading it live. That means that we are legally obligated to paint your pile of shame.
Did we do it? Did we mess up?
I don't. Shit. I think we did.
Okay.
No.
Do you have a big pile of shame still?
Oh gosh, so much. I do try to cull the herd on a regular basis. So I give gifts. Also, coming up on my Patreon, we have our fantasy football league on my Patreon, and I give away so much stuff for people in my league.
Nice.
I've already started my pile of stuff because I do this fun thing where I come up with awards. Like I award someone with the funniest team name of the year,
Okay.
and I award somebody with the pat on the back you tried award for the person that was the shittiest. And then I have I just make up awards and have a little award ceremony, and I send out people packages and stuff, and we have a good time. So that's coming up soon. I got a pile that's growing.
Nice.
So but yeah, my Kingdom Death pile of shame is bad. My factions in Warhammer that I really love is bad.
Okay.
I need to talk to you about something, Scott.
Yeah, okay. Hold on. I want to talk about Kingdom Death, but you do your thing first.
Okay. I think I want to sell my Night Lord's army.
Oh, no. Why?
It sits in my shelf, and I almost think, here's my thought process.
Okay.
Because I painted it, a speed paint.
Right.
I repainted it. I think it looks solid now, but I think it actually hinders me from wanting to paint more Night Lords because I think it looks good as an army, but I don't want future Night Lords to necessarily be beholden to that look. And I love Night Lords. I've collected more Night Lords, some of the new stuff from the Kill Team and stuff, but I don't want to paint them because they won't fit in that. And I think this will do two things. One, it will break the chains free from me of the Night Lords, and then I'll be able to approach them from a whole new way and maybe do a whole new army. And two, I kind of want to do a 40K army again, but I feel like I only have so much space, and that army takes up so much damn space.
Okay.
So I kind of just want to. If I found a good home for it, any Goodie PPs?
Do you think that you don't you want to change the color scheme dramatically, not navy blue armor and stuff like that?
I think I want to approach how I deal with the dark and the lightning. I want to experiment in a totally different way. And I think it'll look too different. I also want to do underpainting with it. So the darks actually have this interesting chromatic feel while still being dark. And I have thoughts, but I know you could say, well, John, you could still just do that. I'm like, but yeah, but there's something about when you finish a new unit of squad of 5, they won't look anything like the other army, and I won't even want to play with them. And you know what I mean? Also, that list was built it was built to be a legit list, but they're not necessarily the units and the things that I enjoy most.
Okay.
In the feel of Night Lords.
Yeah.
It's got big turkeys, which are badass in the game. It's got a whole bunch of the raptors, which are cool, but I almost want to do custom raptors. You know?
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
So what do you think? Do you think I should do that?
Here's what I think. You're not going to fucking play 40K. Okay? Who cares about what's in the list, you know?
Yeah.
But also, I feel like you could still paint the 5 dudes and not sell the army just to see what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I could do that.
I
should do that.
The space limitation, I totally understand.
Right.
Although you're probably coming due to buy a new figure case here. No?
I'm getting one for my parents.
Oh.
So my parents have this really nice one, the big Amish furniture one that has my dad's old toys in. So my dad's toys from the 50s. He's got all these guns and toy soldiers and Roy Rogers shit and all that kind of stuff, which is apparently worth a lot of money. But they're like, we don't want this. And we also, like, they're kind of getting to that age where it's just like, we don't want this to be a burden for you one day. But I'm like, I really want it because it's got the full glass sides.
Okay.
And the doors open on the sides, and the glass is nice. And it's got lights, and it's all, like, very open, so a lot of light gets into it.
Okay.
And it's not super deep. It's probably, like, 12, 15 inches deep. And it's big, and it fits in my room just outside here. I measured that wall to fit perfectly to that wall right up to the light switch. So I have that big one coming.
Okay.
But I have a bunch of stuff on my bookshelf, including that army. So maybe I would wait until I would get it in there and then see how the army looks in there. But yeah, I got more coming. More space. A lot of space.
Okay.
So.
The other thing I'm thinking about here is I feel like you only have so much army painting sauce to go around, you know? Like,
I know. Yeah.
So what do you think about painting just a totally different army? You know, are you that excited about painting more Night Lords, or is there something else that also could pique your interest?
Yeah, I'm like, I decide if I wanted to go whole hog on the Mad Max orcs. Like, what would that be?
Mm-hmm.
And that would, what a full army of that would look like. That would be cool. There are a lot of other factions in 40K I think are cool, but it's like, I also have over 2,000 points of Death Guard painted that are in boxes in my closet because I don't have space for them. So that could, like, I mean, I love Death Guard too, and I love painting Death Guard. We'll talk about that and what we painted today of the Nurgle stuff that I'm just like remembering how much I enjoy this. But yeah, so I don't know. I just kind of, it's been in my head the last week, pretty hardcore. And I even like sent a message out to my local 40K dude where I'm just like, do you know if anyone would be interested in a Night Lord's army? And he's like, I can put the word out, but I don't know. If I found a good home for Goodie PP and a good home for it, I would charge you money, but I'm not going to charge you $10,000 or anything,
Okay.
It's not that good.
All right. I mean, I get where you're coming from. I feel like I'm never a proponent for like selling painted models just because like at some point you're going to regret having sold them. I mean, maybe you won't. Maybe you won't. I feel like I have. Like very early on in my YouTube career, one of my Patreon rewards was a giveaway of a painted model. I don't know if it was once a month or once a quarter or something like that, but like I like that like cleaned out like a lot of my one-off miniatures that I had painted just for fun. Cause I was like, oh, I don't have a purpose for this because it's not for a game. So I'll just give it to a patron. Like a lot of my Heavy Metal Marines. Like I think I have like 2 of the 10 that I originally painted.
That would be cool to have all 10
right.
in a row.
Yeah, have all 10 in a row. Yeah. For no reason other than just to see them together. So I don't know. Like my experience with selling stuff is or giving it away or whatever it may be has always been kind of like not amazing, but you're a different person. Maybe it won't be that big of a deal.
I do that too, where I give away stuff on the Patreon. But I found that like because I end up painting so much over the course of a given month or two that like I still have more than I can fit in cases that I feel good about. So it's like that's fine as long as it's not if it's something I really liked and I really enjoyed this process, or I look at the model on the shelf and I'm really happy, that one I'm not going to get rid of that I painted for videos. Like, and I have a lot of those, but there's a lot of them too. Like, oh, this was a fun experiment. It was whatever. And maybe I painted 3 models in this video, and one of them I don't like as much as the other 2, but it's still cool. Like, yeah, that's good. But yeah, the ones that just take up a ton of space. Actually, the Frankenstein monster from Mindwork Games, I am sending that out to New York to be in a interactive show. Hang on, I gotta think of the name of the artist. Is the artist that I worked with for the Deck of Many Colors, Martin McCoy. And he's putting on a miniature interactive show, like a choose your own adventure show that's in an art gallery in New York. I think it's in Brooklyn. Where it's like you like they tell a little bit of a story and you're a character in this world and you've got to travel between worlds, and you go to these art pieces that are all miniatures telling a scene, and it explains the scene, and then you have a choice to make. Do you want to do A or do you want to do B? And then based on your choice, you go to a different room and you're taken to a different world, and the stories kind of stack and interact. And so I'm sending out a piece for that, and I'm like, oh, that's a great use for something, right? That it's like, oh, this would be used, and then all the pieces are then up for sale that people can buy them as part of the art scene or whatever.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna donate the money to Martin because he's a badass and I love his work. So, but I just think it's like, oh, there's things like it's good to have some pieces because you may come across some cool use for them, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay,
kind of things.
that's pretty cool. That's a cool opportunity to get to use your model in that way.
Yeah. So you were gonna say something about Kingdom Death?
Yes, let's continue on with this preamble ramble.
Wait, sorry.
I've always associated you as like being a lover of Kingdom Death, but when are you gonna paint those damn models, bro?
Yeah, I paint some, but I don't paint as many of them as I'd like to. The problem is I have them in the deep recess pile of shame where they're out of sight, out of mind kind of situation.
Okay.
But I have like a stack of boxes of like the ones I want to paint more recently right at the front. A lot of those are ones that I want to use for D&D characters and stuff though. So like they'll get painted for that. I have another big monster all built, the Golden Bat. He's all built over in my case over there. So that's going to be for a video in the future at some point as well. So yeah, I've got some, but like I've kind of stopped buying them if I'm honest with you.
Okay.
Like, I haven't bought a Kingdom Death model in I don't know, almost a year. Probably since last Black Friday. So yeah.
Are you mostly farming them out for other purposes like RPGs and displaying models and stuff like that, as opposed to playing the Kingdom Death board game with them?
Well, we have with my group that plays Kingdom Death, we have enough of a core group of stuff painted of the main campaign of bad guys and the characters that we can always play with painted models. You get down the road of like, if you truly were going to customize and paint a model based on your character loadouts, you'd never be able to achieve that.
Okay.
And most of their models aren't for the game. Most of the ones that I own are like, they're not like a character in the game. But I mean, they're in the world, but they're not like a thing you play. The monsters are the only ones that you really paint for that reason.
Okay.
So I've found anyway. So it's like, I have enough painted and I will continue. If we like add more expansions, there's more boxes that I can paint for that for sure. Yeah. The monsters, but you have to be in the mood to paint a monster because they're big.
Right.
And they got a lot of detail and finicky. So you have to be in the mood.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the actual Preamble Ramble. I went to PAX Unplugged again this year. I almost thought I wasn't going to go. Originally, we had planned to fly out like Thursday and come back on Monday. And I couldn't manage that with my schedule. I needed to do that 3D printing video. I needed more time to do it. And so we ended up changing our flight so that we left at 4 in the morning on Saturday, and then got back in the evening on Sunday. So it was like a really short but concentrated trip. Like we were only there to go to PAX Unplugged, but it was pretty exhausting. Like getting there and like getting all situated with our Airbnb, and then going to the con and being there until like 8 p.m. and then like going to sleep, waking up and doing it again until like our flight left. Like, we brought our suitcases to the con so that we could leave immediately from there to go and fly out. So it was a lot, but I don't know, like my wife isn't like the biggest geek, and she isn't like into like a lot of things that I'm into, which is totally fine, but for some reason she really loves PAX. And so like I just want to like be able to, you know, enjoy that with her, because like there's just not a lot like that we do enjoy together. We play board games together, but that doesn't happen too often. Like nothing like a con like PAX Unplugged. So I kind of wanted to make it happen no matter if, you know, how early we're waking up. Right. So we went, and it was awesome. We got a ton of awesome games. And I feel like I mentioned this last time I was there, and I think I relearned it this time. The vendor hall is just absolutely fucking enormous. It's so big. And what I realized is that if you're looking out into the vendor hall, on the left side is where all the games are being played and stuff like that. And in the middle, there is a bunch of like massive vendors, like the big board games that you've heard of and you see at board game stores and stuff like that. And then on the right are all these like indie companies, like these smaller companies that are, you know, they're kind of like medium sized, but I've never heard of them. Yeah. They have like really nice fleshed out products. They look beautiful, but they're just like unique. I never would see them at a game store. And that right side is just so much fucking fun to walk through and talk to those people and see their games, and like, because they're all like these different things that I've never heard of, or different ideas that I never would have thought of, and it's like really cool actually and inspirational to go through that side.
That's really nice that they kind of put them together, so you get your mental mindset set up. It's like, oh, we're going down the secret alley of the games we'd never have known about. But like, I'm sure most of the time you're talking with the owner, developer, creator too. Like, they're smaller companies.
Oh, every single time. Yeah, every time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. So did you pick up some of those?
Yeah. So one game I picked up, I'm going to talk about in the section where we talk about what we painted. But
okay.
There was a card game that I played called Gudnak, Gudnak, that was like, it was a card game, but also at the same time it was like a positional kind of battle. So like, you have this grid in front of you that's like a 3x9 with squares, and when you have a hand of cards and you play cards onto this grid, and they're like minions, and they can like move on the grid forward and backward, and your whole point is you want to like siege the enemy's fortress to remove cards from their deck, which also represents their hit points. And then once they run out and you have a guy sitting in front of their castle gates, like, you win the game. And so it's like it's a combination of a card game that you would know, but also with kind of like a, miniature wargaming, like war setup and stuff like that.
Like chess too.
Yeah, kind of like chess. Yeah.
Positioning. I like that.
It's
That's
actually
really cool. Like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it was super cool. I really liked it a lot. And they just gave me a bunch of stuff because they knew my channel. So, I was gonna pay for it anyways, but they were like, "Hey, we know you," and I was like, "Sick." And it's an expandable card game, and so it's not collectible. So you buy the cards in sets, and every set has the exact same cards in it, but you can still buy booster packs to get like foil and alternate art versions of the cards. And so they gave me a booster pack, and I got a bunch of sick like holographic versions of all the cards, and I made a few decks and played it when we went back to home for Thanksgiving with Curtis, and it was just it was a ton of fun. So that was one that stood out a lot, that I liked a lot. And then I also got some expansions for Thunder Road. That game I made I loved that game so much last year when I bought it, and so I wanted some big rigs, some dirt bikes, and some like crew leaders for this, like, what is it? It's a freaking Mad Max style racing death kill game. Super fun. And then the last one that I really enjoyed and want to shout out is the Two Towers trick taking game. I never would have thought that I would have given a shit about a trick taking game like Whist or Hearts or Spades. But the way they do it with this game is so freaking cool. You're given a set of characters. It's collaborative. It's not competitive. You have to ensure that everyone like wins like whatever their goal is. Like Legolas wants to win like 4 forest cards, and Gimli wants 4 mountain cards. But like every chapter you complete, you progress to this next chapter, and you get new characters, you get new objectives, you get like events that occur that change like the rules for the game. It's like it's like a narrative, collaborative, like almost campaign-based trick-taking game. And it's so good. I don't know why it's so good, but I really, really enjoy it.
I have been looking at Gudnak.com right now.
I have 2 decks. If you ever want to play, I would love to run you through a game.
Play this. Oh my! First of all, the art direction is badass.
Yes,
I love that they're like nice square. Like, it's something very aesthetically pleasing to see the square cards on the board. Oh man, this looks so cool.
You can print the cards out if you want to just print and play with them. You don't have to buy them. Like, it's a very accessible game. It's cool, like there are tactics you can play. There are constructs like a ballista or a trebuchet. There are heroes. And there's deck building too. Like, there's obviously more options than just one deck per faction, and so you get to kind of construct your deck the way you see fit.
Different factions. They got a deck builder on their website.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, print and play, FAQ, play on tabletop simulator. Oh, buy. Let me buy. Let me buy all the booster boxes already. Come on. Okay. All right, I got to get off of this, or I'm going to sit here this whole time.
They got an undead faction though. It's called the Gloaming, and they're just frosty undead. Think like Arthas, from Wrath of the Lich King. It's great shit.
Accessories. Oh, they have faction sleeve bundles, so they have the right size sleeves. You can sleeve your cards.
Yeah.
Oh, they got the cool play mats. They look like they're of a scene, like the winter scene play mat.
Oh, that's the other thing is that it can be 1v1, but it can also be a free for all 3-player and free for all 4-player or team based 2v2. You just need a different mat because it gets bigger and it's very cool.
Okay. All right. Well, that's another rabbit hole I'm going to go down. Okay.
Dude, the card games always get you.
They do. I know when you got me with you can get your own shiny and alt art version.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, glad that you had a good time. It's important that if you have something that your partner, they may not be whole hogging with you, but there's some aspect of it that they like to you encourage that, because I'm sure Amber is that's where she was ooh games, and then you can ride that wave for a couple months. You're back home playing them and stuff, and then next year you get her back on it. Yeah, that's cool. I've always wanted to go there too because I know they have a big Magic presence too.
Oh my gosh,
they got speakers.
Oh my gosh, they really do. So the newest set is. Remind me what it is. It's a TV show.
Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Yeah, so they had this big area in the middle of the vendor hall. Actually, it wasn't in the playing area. It was by the vendors. And they had, they were playing Magic, but they also had this huge cart that was from the world of Avatar with cabbages and other funny vegetables and characters that you could take pictures with and stuff. And it was so big and fancy. And there was other areas people were playing Magic. So many vendors that had rare special versions of cards behind glass panels and stuff. There was so much Magic the Gathering stuff there. It's crazy.
They have a big RPG presence there.
Oh too. Yeah I played I got to play. Oh wait, no, never mind. That was a different convention. But yes, there's tons of RPG stuff there too. You can do one shots. You can learn from developers and stuff about what they're doing in their games and new stuff like that, like chats and speaker presentations and stuff like that. There's so much RPG stuff. What's cool about it actually is that the people who run the show don't want you to have to pay for events, and so every event is free other than maybe the drafts for card games.
Sure, if it's with a product. Sure.
Yeah, but if you just sign up, then you can go to the event. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I did not go to PAX Unplugged. Instead, I've been on a Stranger Things speed run over the last week or so.
Okay.
While I've been painting, just during my daytime when I'm working, when I'm doing stuff that doesn't require me to listen, I'm going through and editing audio and stuff. I just have Stranger Things on. I'm up to season 3. So my goal is over the next week or two to have rewatched the entire series. So then when I can finish out season 5.
Okay.
And I'm reminded how good season 1 is of that show. It is so good. They get progressively worse, but they're still solid, and I just really love that show.
Yeah.
Also at D&D last weekend, my buddy made homemade Star Crunch.
Oh, what's Star
Crunch?
Crunch?
Tony. It's a Little Debbie. It's the thing that's the circle that's chocolate with Rice Krispies and caramel.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And he made homemade Star Crunch, and it might be the most addictive thing I've ever eaten in my life. It's basically a Rice Krispie bar with a bunch of milk chocolate, ton of milk chocolate, and caramel mixed in. So you're okay, there's nothing that could go wrong.
Right. Yeah. Toss some peanut butter in there, and that is crack.
Yeah, that's true. Man, maybe a little crunchy peanut butter, a little extra crunch. Woo, doggy. All right. So yeah, he just said he found the recipe online. So anyone wants to make their own homemade Star Crunch for holiday season, I'm telling you, that is a solid choice. They are sticky as fuck though. They are so sticky. You just get the glue. It's just nature's glue stuck to your hands. And we were playing Magic while I was eating that Star Crunch, and that was a dangerous proposition.
Yeah.
I played for 45 minutes with one hand playing Magic because I wouldn't allow myself to touch anything with sticky Star Crunch hand.
That's awesome. The other thing I'll talk about in my Preamble Ramble is I got yet another office chair sponsorship that I'm doing from a company called HBDA. And I got the chair and I've been painting in it. And, they have all kinds of articulation they do. But this one did something new that I've never seen before. Not only do the arms bend inward and outward, which is great, but also the front half of the arms bend up. And so what I've been doing is I've been pointing them inward and bending them up, and you could rest your whole forearm on them up to the edge of your desk, and you feel so fucking locked in.
Wow.
And like you have so much stability because your entire forearm was supported all the way up to the edge of the desk where your hands are. And like if I ever had to make a hobby chair, or recommend one, it would be a chair that could have that kind of functionality because it's so nice for a little bit of extra stability.
That's a thing that for most people would be like a weird, never used thing, but for us, it's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, it feels like a weird, like, who is going to use this? But it is, you're 100% right. It's perfect for mini painting.
Okay. That's cool. All right, I have to look into that chair.
Yeah.
And say, hey, sponsor me too, guys. I have a little kind of a decompression something I want to talk about real quick. So I went through and I finalized all 100 cards of my deck of many colors with the paint. So I'm officially all 1,500 cards. Actually, there was more than 100. I ended up doing like 105 cards in case I needed to swap some out or whatever. But anyway, after finding 1,500 paints selected for a wide variety of color schemes and everything, I am staring at my walls of paints and doing paint swatches and testing everything, whatever. I came to some interesting kind of realizations that it felt like the best place for me to talk about that was here.
Okay.
Okay. So the way I looked at it is paint sets there are two sides, and then there are some shades of gray in the middle. On the one side, you have the Vallejo and the AK 3rd Gen, where the paint sets are massive, like over 250, 300 plus colors, not including metallics, washes, inks, mediums, and that stuff. Those are the two big paint brands we think of for that. On the flip side, we have much more curated, smaller ranges. So something like the Tooth and Coats range, even like Pro Acryl range. Somewhere in the middle is something like the Army Painters Fanatic range, P3's range. Games Workshop is an interesting animal because their paint sets, or their paint set in quotations, is so like ethereal, where it's like you can't just like figure out what the full set is, and like it's things like come and go and into layer and base sets and stuff like that. I think Games Workshop is somewhere in the middle. And so when you have the far side where they have freaking every color, what I learned was that oftentimes so many of the colors are close together, and I would actually put Army Painter Fanatic closer to that oftentimes they have 2 to 3 paints where they only needed 1 because they're so close. And when I'm picking swatches and when I'm figuring out exactitudes of an exact color, sometimes that's very helpful because I'm like, okay, it's this version of sky blue. It's actually a little bit more desaturated than the sky blue I used 5 cards ago. That was a little bit more saturated, and there's value in that. But most times I found when I were to go glance at my wall of AK 3rd Gen and over picking 1,500 colors, a third of those paints I just never had used. They're too close, or they're just like this brown and that brown are so close that you don't need both browns.
Right.
But what I did find is very specific tones. I'm glad that they exist, but I don't necessarily need them all. Okay. Flip side, more curated, smaller paint sets. Pro Acryl, Tooth and Coats, and even GW. There are just big gaps where like there's just nothing close to this color. You see this oftentimes in purples and violets and magentas. There's such a wide variety of those really interesting tones that live in those families that most paint ranges, even the extensive paint ranges, just have major gaps where they don't have those colors.
What's an example?
And often, so like a saturated red violet would be an example. So if you were to go and look at all your paint ranges and you're like, well, that color doesn't exist at all. I could either go to more a pure purple that's more blue. I could go to a very desaturated that's more of a burgundy. But that's actually a color, and it's a really interesting, vibrant color, and none or very few paint ranges have that color. And that's an example, but I came across those a lot where there was examples where I just assumed they'd have this color, and having the full ranges, they don't. That doesn't mean the paint set is bad or it's missing obvious things. It's just interesting going to a more curated sets, what they chose to keep or not keep. And so I didn't necessarily come away with this of like, I think one of these sets is better or worse because of their either restrictions or bloat, for lack of a better term. But I just found that was like sometimes very interesting, cool, unique colors. Only one range would have that color. A good example of this would be like Jade from Pro Acryl. That's a very popular color. People know that color. It's a really interesting color, but no other sets have that color, even really fleshed out sets. And
really,
it was just yeah.
Like an
There
like
were
an
multiple-
emerald blue green. No one had like Incubi Darkness, or that doesn't count.
No, well, Jade is super saturated.
Okay.
Most times you get to that, you get to very desaturated, and that's one of the things where I found is that a lot of times people will then go back and lean on a desaturated version of a thing instead of a more true tone of it, even when it's a mix. And so you can get a ton. There's so much variation in dark colors and desaturated tones that I found that like oftentimes when you go to dark and you go to desaturation, they tend to blur a bit, right?
Okay.
And so having more true tones was kind of an eye-opening experience. And I also found, and this is not a slight on the Fanatics range, I found the Fanatics range, while it has a lot of colors, well over 100 paints, they're in sets of 6. So like the Ruddy Browns, there's 6 Ruddy Browns. But when you break down 100 paints and then everything has to be in sets of 6, that means that they're all shades of the same thing. And there are noticeable gaps of just certain tones that just don't exist at all because everything had to be in sets of 6. And then sometimes those sets of 6, you feel like color 3 and 4 are real close, right? You just add a little bit more white or a little bit more ochre or something.
Okay.
That said, I use a lot of the Fanatics range in filling out these color swatches because they had nice differentiation and changes of things that they had the right on color oftentimes when other ranges didn't. So it would be like, well, I'm going to give you this I'm going to give you an example of this Pro Acryl color, but it's actually much more saturated than what you want, but we just don't have any other options. Fanatics had a lot of that more minutia breakdown.
Okay.
In that. So I just like learned a lot, and it was so funny now. Like when I was about, I don't know, 600, 700, 800 paints in, I would look at a swatch and I would know the name of like 3 colors in 3 different ranges from like it was forced repetition of staring and actually looking at the way I look at color now has changed so much. Because I look at a tone and I break down its mix and I break down what's the important property of that color. So if I see a yellow paint, what's the important part of that yellow that I'm looking at? Is it the fact that it has that ochre richness in brown? Is it more orange forward? Is it a true lemon yellow? Is it more desaturated? What part of that color that I'm looking at on the swatch is what separates it or is the important factor? And then that's what I look for when I'm looking for miniature paints, is the important thing. Even if I'm not going to find a 100% true match, what aspect of it is what's forward? What makes it work in looking at the artwork that makes that tone the right tone for that? So I felt like in tying into what our topic is today about art. Like I felt like not purposefully that I ended up having to like make my brain hurt by looking at things in a more kind of true artistic way than I usually did before. And I find that that's actually like it's spread over into miniature painting a bit too.
Okay.
So
Okay. That seems like a positive thing. So
it is, but it was a lot of hours to get there.
Right. So when you're coming up with, maybe you already explained this somewhere, when you're developing schemes for these cards, are you starting with a piece of art and then dissolving the scheme from that piece of art? Do you have just a scheme that you like say, a dark navy blue and an orange and a orange leaning khaki, like that kind of thing, and then you find art that matches that scheme? Is it a combination of all those things? What does it look like?
Yeah, it's kind of a snake that's eating its own tail,
Okay.
which is what made it very complicated. Was that I started with the art first because oftentimes the art in the use of color could be very inspiring. And at a certain point, let's say I'd found maybe 40 art pieces. Then I'm like, all right, I now need to make sure I'm not double dipping on any of those schemes. And I'm looking for gaps. So I'd set up like a giant grid that would show little versions of the art with the swatches beside them. And then I would put them into quadrants, and you almost kind of like create this graph of a color wheel, right? Of showing different combinations and where are my gaps and where are certain color combinations I like to work with that I don't have showcased. And then I would go out and then look for more art to fill those gaps. And then I would find other art that I don't care whether or not I've overlapped on it. I just love it, and I would pull it in and say, does this fit? Does it have a unique scheme that I'm not showing, right? So yes, the answer is it's complicated, but it was both. But I had to start with getting a full pile of awesome art that used great use of color first, and find out, because usually there you're like, it's as much about finding things that I don't use and I'm not comfortable with because I really think that they did an awesome job and I love this art and it fits the theme. What colors did they use to achieve that? As much as trying to push myself and my own use of color in there. That did happen. Ended up being probably 15 pieces that were purposely picked because they were schemes that I just know that I really love using.
Okay.
So,
all right, cool, interesting. Yeah, I don't know how I would approach that, but I would imagine it had to be similar, a nice variety, just because there's so many schemes to fill out that it can't just be ones that you know from memory or have used before in the past. Yeah, got to go all over the place.
I didn't realize it was going to be as complicated as it was until I actually started. And I was like, oh no, this is not as simple as, because you're also working with existing works of art too, right? Because I want to see that finished work in color used to make a decision. Mm-hmm. I can't make a list of 5 colors and send it out to an artist because their brain and how they use color may not function well with that. I need to know where their style has evolved in the way that they use color to be organic to their style, because that's what matters, is that final piece is impactful and different. Finding enough variety of artists, I think in the 100 works of art here, there's probably somewhere between 60 and 70 unique artists. So it was as much of finding artists that use the schemes that I know I want to use that scheme. And there's no easy way to just Google search that, right? You just had to dig and dig and dig. And a big help was from the community. And I'm like, tell me cool artists that you know about that work in sci-fi and fantasy, and then I looked up all their catalog, and then I'd reach out to them, and then hope to God they responded. And so things took longer than I thought, but also not that much longer. It was just a lot of hours in a short period of time.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get on to our TUP Partner segment here, starting off with Game Envy. Game Envy is an awesome hobby company that does all sorts of awesome tools, namely a wet palette, a great gaming light that I saw all over PAX Unplugged to light people's booths and stuff like that to get nice focused light in certain areas. Great miniature holders as well, while we're on that topic as well. So check them out. They have awesome tools.
Yeah. Next up is Cobalt Keep, and they are the best in the business for magnetic bases for your models. They're all super flush in there, so your magnets aren't going to pop off as you're in transport cases, and you can go right on a miniature holder with a metal or magnet top, so you can just paint with that magnet usage, as Scott showed in his recent painting handle video. That magnets are a great use for that. And then in their fun display cases as well as travel cases, they're all magnetized as well. So it's all an ecosystem.
Next up, we have Monument Hobbies. They have their cool new colored primers and also an intro paint set coming along. But also, I saw on Facebook they had a Wizard Butt set, which I didn't know this. Wizard Butt is kind of like a meme paint they have. And I thought it was just one paint, but apparently there are many versions of Wizard Butt, and they all come in this funny little, humorous paint set. But yeah, Monument Hobbies, most known for their paints. Excellent stuff. Check them out. Link down in the description below as well.
Iwata is our last one for our first section of TUP Partners. And I got my trusty HPCS here. This is the airbrush that I use more than the rest of them put together. If I want to blast through any kind of liquid, it could literally be milk, cottage cheese, eggnog. It doesn't matter. This thing will blow it out, and it will not get clogged up. I do not get dry tip. It is just my workhorse. So Iwata, built for artists, trusted by masters, precision tools, no matter your path.
All right, on to the hobby update here. So one company that was on that more indie side of the vendor hall was a company I've never heard of before, and they make a game called Space Schlock, which is
what a good word.
I know.
Schlock.
It was a great just combination of 70s, 80s vintage sci-fi. So you get a little bit of Alien, you get a little bit of Star Wars, you get a little bit of Star Trek, you get a little bit of Lost in Space, you get a little bit of Planet of the Apes. It's just all in there, and everything about the company just drips that vintage feel. Like the models are sculpted in a fun kind of vintage way. They are cast in pewter. They have packs of cards that have the stats of the units that are in wax wrapping, like that old school like card pack. And like even like the way the rules are written, I read them a little bit. It just feels kind of vintage. The only thing that's not vintage about it is the game system. The game system is very modern, and I demoed it and really, really enjoyed it. So I bought the entire starter set, which comes with 2 factions you can use to play the game, terrain, all the dice and components you need, several rule books and stuff like that to help you learn how to play the game. But it was awesome. And I painted a model for an upcoming video. I forget what he's called. It's called like a Star Raider or something like that.
What a great name.
I know.
Star Raider.
And
you sent me a picture of the cover. This must be the cover of the game or something, and it just says on the bottom, "Who is trying to shoot this man? What is happening on Mount Rushmore?"
So this actually is a piece of art from like a coffee table book that I have that's like basically all 70s vintage sci-fi art.
And so this is the inspiration for your paint job.
Yeah. And so I'm just getting started on this model. I just pretty much finished the red armor, and I'm like on step 2 of the blue right now. And I would like never paint a model like this with like blue fucking mitten hands and blue like green goblin shoes. Like this concept art has like, he's got like sock shoes on. I love it. But yeah, like this is a crazy paint scheme. But I kind of love it. I love the red, tight suit and the blue outer elements and the white helmet. The white helmet would be great for drawing attention to the head of the model and stuff like that. It's kind of like an interesting, fun, kind of peachy red orange too. I don't know. I wanted to paint it like, who's one of our favorite German painters who paints very simple but beautiful models, and like they're just so beautifully soft and blended well. What's his name? Do you remember his name?
Oh no, I know exactly who you're talking about too.
Yeah.
He often does a lot of the wow, this is great content. Metal King Studios game by Sean Sutter, and I can't think of the name of the game either. I'm just fucking terrible.
Relic Blade.
It's on my Relic Blade. He paints Relic Blade, Mike Mutiny.
Yeah, that's it. I was trying to channel my best Mike Mutiny, but I'm gonna talk about what I did to try to get those soft blends in the after party. I'm gonna tell you how I'm failing still. Spoilers, it's harder than I thought it was. But yeah, it's not looking amazingly smooth at the moment. But I have a lot of work left to do on the model. Like there are whole parts that are still yet unpainted. But yeah, I'm really enjoying, again, a simple, beautiful sculpt that doesn't have a lot of detail going on. Like there's still some things about it that are a little hokey. Like I don't like the giant mitten hands. Like those could be better for sure. Maybe a little bit larger of a figure. It's quite a small model. It's on a 20 millimeter diameter base, so it's pretty small.
Ooh, little boy.
Yeah, so a little bit bigger of a figure, but it's still a nice, simple, clean mini.
Yeah, I think it's like and it does feel very retro in that like the shapes are all purposeful and very stylized, but it's not overly detailed. Like that's very true to that kind of era, which is kind of the origin era of the Space Marine too.
Yeah.
Right? Like that started with that 80s sci-fi aesthetic, and then they just kind of modernized it and tried to badassify it with a Primaris and stuff. But
yeah,
why did I just call them Primaris?
Primaris. Okay.
Yeah, Primaris. The Primaris Marines feels like what they would call them if they were in like an old John Carpenter movie. Yeah, I think this is cool, and it's a reminder, and I'm sure it's preaching to the choir here that like the simplistic shapes done smoothly is so much freaking harder than it looks like it would be.
Yeah,
it's so hard.
Yeah. It definitely feels more difficult than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I did the opposite of smooth. I did 3 of the enemy models, bad guy models, in the new Warhammer Quest Dark Water box, Dank Water, as it were. And this was the newest evolution of my underpainting technique. So I'm doing something completely different, but on that first step of underpainting. And I'll talk about that in the after party. So if you're a patron, you get to listen to the after party or watch the after party as well of something new we tried. And so I'll break down that. But really the foundation is that just crazy underpainting and then jumping right into defining shapes with your brush tip, kind of like using it like a pencil. Defining shapes, showcasing the change in colors with semi-transparent highlights. So you go from the darkest colors to the brightest colors and let that transition that happens naturally with translucent paint do the work. And you can knock them out pretty quick, and it makes it look like you didn't spend as much time, or excuse me, it makes it look like you spent much more time because of the color depth that happens there. So, 3 different models, and it's 10 paints. So I used 5 saturated colors and then 5 kind of like grimdark Nurgly colors. And this trying to see if like I can make them feel like they all belong together with the wide use of colors, but trying to use a similar style and accent there as well. So
I think it works. I think they all kind of feel like they belong in this kind of fanciful, legend-inspired, colorful 80s fantasy world. But like the saturated colors you have are consistent across the models, obviously, which was intentional, and it makes them look like they belong together, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, I think the style goes a long way to it, right? As much as the color, because the style is so consistent,
right?
That, and then like certain accent colors, so like the use of the kind of lime green for the armor on the Nurgly Fat Arm Man is the same that's used in the shoulder pad of the Pestigore, and then it's the same base tone used on the skin for the big 3-headed dude. Like those tones kind of carry it through a bunch without them being so samey and using it over most of the model. Yeah. That was kind of my thought. So yeah, I so much fun with this. I actually was talking to Vince about when I was in the middle of painting these last week that I was like, this is the most fun I've had painting miniatures in long time.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't enjoy painting miniatures all the time, because I do. Every time I paint miniature, it is always, I'm over the baseline of fun. But something about this, I was just like, I was so pumped to get to the next model. And I wished I had the time to paint 5 or 10 models for this, every single different one, and do the same thing, because I was enjoying it so much. And the question that I got to Vince with was like, because I enjoy this so much and I want to continue this, is this something I could do and paint in this style for Golden Demon to a level of success, a level of refinement? Or is it just naturally too much chaos that it would not be rewarded?
I think before you let me know Vince's answer, I think this definitely could work. I think where it's working the best for heavy metal is with the demon. I forget what they're called. The one with the bush on his shoulders.
Yeah, bushy shoulders.
Yeah, that one, it feels like you had a very specific vision for like where all these weird and bizarre colors are going, but they very satisfyingly blend from one to another. Like, so I think this maybe refined, a little bit more, would absolutely work and be a very different thing that you normally see at Golden Demon.
Yeah. I think it's an eye-catching style too,
Yeah.
which is why I really like it.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying to paint, because I did not go into painting all those transitions with the skins with a plan. I noted that there was all these transitions in the undertones, and I decided to accentuate, or either through complementary or contrasting use of color with those. And then it just made those transitions kind of like happen a lot easier, because I'm leaning on the depth of color underneath. And then it just ended up being so much more fun. So I was just like, oh, this is not, it made it a little bit easier. It made it go quicker. And because of that, I had more fun doing it. So I wanted to keep doing it. And so I did a whole bunch of that around the model, and it was just kind of satisfying. And I'm like, well, is there something I could transition to in this style as I paint my Golden Demon piece for this year? And I don't know. I think I'm going to find some way to like integrate it without going too far removed from the way I've begun the piece and how I've painted for Golden Demon in the past. And I was like, well, maybe that's my next evolution for how I paint for competition, is folding in a bit of this. So we'll see.
Okay.
Who knows?
Okay. I have one question about the Blight King.
Yes.
With the big mandible. On his claw, did you airbrush that blue?
No, there's no airbrush in any of these models.
Okay. Was that a glazed blue on top of the skin tone that we see on the rest of the arm?
No, it's all layering. That's all. The transition to the blue goes from like a purple on his wrist and then down to blue.
Mm-hmm.
It's just layering. But it was kind of the initial underpainting went from like a magenta with a little bit of violet up on his shoulder down to like a pure red, and then to a purple and a blue is the undertones. And so it's just building off of that starting point. And so I would just like mix my base tone for skin that I was painting on his, middle of his arm. And then I just mixed in a little bit of the saturated blue to that color, and just then painted the layering for that. And then I mixed in more of that blue as I got down to his fingertips. So
hey man,
just by layering again, but it's translucent paint, right? So it's about 50-50 mix.
Okay.
So no single brush stroke makes such a massive jump. It's just the fact that I'm just doing lots of little dots, lines, following contours, and how many times I repeat that step increases how much opacity I build. And so start with that, and then I found like, okay, I like that haze and it kind of being darker down there, but still showing just enough of an edge highlight on those details that I just left it and didn't push it further. So.
Okay. I freaking like it. It looks good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, we got a mini critique. We are going to Black Lab Miniatures, Campbell Truin. That name sounds familiar. I feel like that's bold.
Wow. Okay.
We got some bold bugs.
Yeah. Speaking of bright and vibrant colors.
Right? This is wow.
This is a Golden Demon entry. Nice. Okay, so we're looking at some kind of Nurgle creature on an oval base, big wings, looks very insectoid. The wings are painted incredibly vibrantly. The rest of the body is done in a military green and stuff like that.
Yes.
I wish I had bigger. Oh, okay. There's more. Oh, it's a unit. Okay.
Yeah, this is a unit. I saw this in person, so
Nice.
I got to meet him. I got to give him some feedback prior to him submitting this to the case, and so I can kind of reiterate some of the stuff that I told him here as far as my brain remembers it.
Cool. Yeah.
So my first thought is, you've got your key colors with that kind of a limey green and your purple, and that pulls everybody together. I think you really kind of contrasting the desaturated bugs and the saturated greens and purples goes a long way to bring some eye catchingness to this. The vibrant wings stand out is a little bit off. I don't want to say off-putting, but they don't feel like that model fits with everything else. And I know that's the story, is that's the queen, right? She's got the eggs on her base, and so she should stand out a little bit. And I really love that teal in the wings. The only issue is that teal is not used anywhere else on the rest of these models. So the answer is, I think that teal needs to find itself other places, as opposed to don't use that teal. That's my initial thought on that.
Okay. It's hard to. I wish I could see the whole unit.
One picture.
In one picture, yeah. That'd be nice to see. Because as an individual model, the wings are spectacular. I really like what you did with them. However, the wings segments go from teal to blue to purple to magenta to yellow. And that yellow color isn't anywhere on the models either. But I'm curious if the teal is sticking out to you, because the models are kind of in this yellowy green world already, that this warm yellow kind of feels like it belongs more than the teal. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, and then the transition to the magenta and then the purple, I think that's close enough in the family that we've seen in a little bit other places to that purple that lives. But that really stark kind of that teal is what jumps out.
Okay.
And I don't think they all have to be super matchy or whatever as well. Again, I think a picture where all of them together might change my opinion a bit, of like, it's an accent when you look at them as a whole instead of separate pieces, that's an accent color across the unit. It just happens to just be focused on one piece. I think a bigger thing that I have some issues with in terms of this being a competition piece is the bases as a whole, I think, are pretty lackluster.
Definitely.
They're too flat, and any bit of detail you have on there feels like it was just sat on top of them. Where in a natural environment, there's going to be much more elevation changes. There's going to be, even on a flat desert, where that skull is on the base of one of these, sand would pile up on one side of it over time, right? It wouldn't just be sitting flush. So make everything feel like it's part of the environment. That egg sac, same kind of thing. It feels like it's just sat there. I want that to be a buildup of that sand around that a little bit more, give us a little bit more interest rather than just a perfectly flat base, especially since you have a guy that's on a little sand mound on his base, that one of the regular dudes in green. So we have an example of how it can work really, really well. I want a little bit more of that to be shown across all the pieces.
I'm really struggling to find other areas of feedback other than the bases, honestly. I just had a thought to have the teal feel like it's included more in the scheme. You have this magenta color that exists on other models. Instead of highlighting that magenta with like a pink, you could have highlighted it with teal and kind of gone into more of like a blue-purple world, and that might have made that teal feel like it was more at home in this unit. But like, honestly, like, these models look great from what I can see, and
I believe he got a pin for this.
Nice.
Like,
okay.
So if I can't remember which pin, but I believe he did, and I remember looking at, after giving it feedback and then seeing all the stuff in his category in the base, like, it stood out. It's well done.
Yeah.
So I mean, well deserved any accolades he got there. So
yeah, I like
good.
I like what he's doing with like the back of the bugs. Like, they have like these, I don't know what you want to call them, these little mounds.
Chitin?
Yeah.
Chitin mounds?
Yeah.
It's very pleasant how that transition is done.
Right. Yeah. Like, if I were to paint that, I would look at that whole thing as a spherical volume and then, highlight it top to bottom. But what he's doing is the things that are sticking out, even just slightly, he's highlighted way more. And then everything surrounding it is like way dark, even though it's on the top of these like beast insectoid things. Despite that, like he's making an artistic choice to say, okay, this is what the shell just looks like. I don't care what volumetric, shading and highlighting has to say about it. I'm just making this choice. And I think it works really well.
Right. The other thing I really want to point out about this wonderful gentleman is that he's from New Zealand.
Oh, cool.
He traveled from New Zealand to come to Adepticon to enter Golden Demon.
It's commitment right there.
Yeah, his accent made him memorable as well when I talked to him. So it was great to meet him. And yeah, great job. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for submitting that. It's an awesome piece.
So I have maybe one thing to say. I can see the entry with the pin in a different post that he made, and like how he arranged the models on a rectangular plinth, and it kind of feels random. I kind of feel like if you want to make a unit entry and you don't want to put them on like a base that it has a bunch of terrain on it and stuff like that can tell a story, because that kind of gets into the diorama world, which I totally get. I kind of feel like the plinth they're displayed on maybe needs a little bit more intentionality. I think people, when they think units, they often think this long rectangle, but for like all these dudes on different bases and base shapes, I don't think it works very well. And instead, if you had like a bigger spherical plinth with maybe like a tier behind it, like a little stair stepping thing, you could arrange them in a much more pleasant way that would just look nicer in the case and just kind of give you that initial, feeling of, wow, this looks cool and it's constructed well, as opposed to kind of just arranging them on a rectangular thing kind of haphazardly.
It's particularly tough on oval bases.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like you want them off center in some direct angle or something like that. And so like having more purpose to how the viewer sees that golden angle is really, really important when it's not as obvious of man facing forward on circular base kind of a thing. It can make all the difference in the how it's kind of absorbed that first impression.
Right.
So,
Right.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. But that's all. Thanks for the submission. Appreciate it.
Out of TUP Partners number 2. First one, we got Steamforged Game, and the War Machine Core rulebook is now up for pre-order. We've heard a lot of really good things from longtime War Machine players, as well as new groups that are entering. So whether if you've never tried it before or you played it a while in the past, now is the perfect time, and it pairs well with the free app, ladies and gentlemen. Free app. Check it out.
Next on the list, we have Corvus Belli, and they're announcing their next wave, a bold new combined army sectorial for Infinity N5. It fuses human grit with alien technology under the battle standard of Team Achilles. And we have some of the cool new models from that new set for Infinity here with me right now in these beautiful boxes. And I mentioned this last time. I want to mention it again. You don't often see people doing cool, well-painted dioramas with models other than GW.
Games Workshop.
Yeah, and I have been seeing people take these models specifically and organize them in beautiful ways on plinths, like you would see for a unit entry at Golden Demon, and painting them to match. And it's just kind of a testament to them getting better and better at making more and more compelling miniatures.
Yeah, good point. I've noticed those as well. Next up is Army Painter, and I talked about Army Painter in the Fanatic range just a bit ago, and I just want to reiterate and using those more how good the new Fanatic range is. So test it out if you haven't. They have some fun smaller sets to kind of get your feet wet. Things like the Jean Blanche set. I've used that in videos, and I really, really enjoy that. So that's a great place to try it out if you haven't, and that's the Army Painter, ladies and gentlemen.
Last on the list is Red Grass Games, another great company that makes a bunch of fantastic hobby tools, namely a web palette, a miniature holder, a fantastic light, a great pair of clippers. They honestly have all sorts of great tools. Check them out if you're in need.
All right, Scott, main topic for the day. And this is a bit of a heavy one. Let's see if we can put our adulting pants on for the day. Or if we're just going to make fart jokes the whole time. Who knows? The topic comes to us by Gray. I don't know if that's a person, a color, place or a thing. Gray says, what do you think takes a model from technically well-executed painting to an art piece? I see a lot of minis that are well painted, but don't jump out as anything more.
That's a great question, honestly. And I think the answer is going to vary depending on who you are and what you're looking for in this hobby and in art in general. And also like what your background is, what your lived experience is, all kinds of stuff. Different things are going to jump out to different people.
Yeah, art is subjective, right? What's the old saying? Art is like porn. I'll know it when I see it. That doesn't mean that I can succinctly put into words what art means. And I think that's maybe a core of what we're talking about here is, well, we want a nice, wrapped up in a bow definition of art. And then if we can do that, then we can apply that to a miniature, and then everything will fall into one or two boxes, art or not art, right? That's not how this works. It's not how it works for any form of art, whether that's visual medium, audio medium, the spoken picture word. Like that's like everything. It's not so simplistic as that.
No.
And I'll take a little bit of not offense, but critique with what you're saying, Gray, here in the second line. It says, I see a lot of minis that are well painted, but don't jump out as anything more. I think if that is your impression, then I think it is just like anything that Scott was mentioning, you making your own personal breakdown of what defines art to you and what defines art to you in the miniature sphere. Because if you don't see a technically well executed painted miniature as art, then why not? Maybe you need to define that for your own eye. And because this is so subjective, anyone's interpretation of what art is at the miniature scale is kind of their own. Right?
Yeah. I kind of feel like, just like you said, for me, when something is art or not art, it just makes me feel something. And that something can be a lot of different things, right? I went to Monte San Savino 2 years ago, and I saw a piece that was about, where we get the raw materials to make cell phones. And it was a critique of like child labor. And that made me feel a certain thing, and not saying that all art needs to be a reflection of humanity and a criticism of it and stuff like that. It can also just make you feel a certain way for like remind you of something in your childhood, or it can make you think of something that you really enjoy, like a certain movie or a certain TV show. I think at the core of it, art has to make you react in a certain way, and like that reaction, makes you ponder, makes you think. When something is just a well executed paint job, like a Space Marine, for instance, the analysis doesn't go beyond that looks good, but it doesn't really make you feel or think. If it's painted like Buzz Lightyear and it makes you, remember seeing Toy Story for the first time in theaters, maybe it becomes art. I'm not sure. I think a feeling needs to be associated with it, a certain kind of reaction.
Sure. I think we often put so much weight on something having to be such an extreme of something in order for us to call it that. And I think that's part of the issue and why, in particular, at least in this current timeline, in this section of the multiverse, that this is something that is more debated or talked about or considered considered more taboo. I'll say this. We all have certain factions in, let's say, we'll use Warhammer as the most prime example, that we gravitate towards, right? So, like, give me an example of a faction in, like, the Warhammer Fantasy Age of Sigmar that you gravitate towards, Scott.
We'll just say Wood Elves, even though they don't exist.
Wood Elves, okay. So, when you see an awesomely sculpted, even in gray plastic or maybe the box art version of a Wood Elf, it gives you a different reaction as opposed to a ogre model, right?
Yeah, I can feel it in my loins.
Yeah. That is art making you feel something. just being aesthetically drawn to something is it creating a reaction or a feeling towards you. It doesn't have to be deeper than that. It doesn't have to be deeper than, oh my gosh, I love that vampire model. More than, I'm not just a big fan of giant, ogres. That's it. That's it. That is a feeling. That is a drawn feeling. Now, you could dig deeper into that and say, why? Why do I like the Wood Elves more? Well, maybe it's because Legolas was my favorite character in Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. Maybe the very first time I was like drawn into these fantasy worlds could have been the first time I saw Games Workshop models. I saw the Wood Elf Lord of the Rings army. It could be that I just like the outdoors setting stuff cooler, and like these nimble, lithe archers that live in the outdoors. And I liked spending time in the outdoors, either as a kid or to this day. It doesn't matter the reason. It's there, and it creates a connection for you. You could dig deeper into your own psyche and your own nostalgia and your own reasons for why you're aesthetically more drawn to something, if you want to. But you don't have to for that still to be considered art to you. Because I see the Wood Elf, I like the Wood Elf. That's it. That's it. That makes it art because I'm drawn to that. And feeling like we have to make a broken cell phone screen showing how the Cobalt is mined by kids and whatever. Like, I'm not saying that's not art. That's obviously art. But we don't have to push those hard buttons for something to be considered art. And I think that the value of pieces like the one you're talking about is that they show the extreme for us to kind of legitimize. I think there's value in legitimize to the non-miniature painting community, what we're doing to the outside. But I think for us internally to it, we don't need to be so harsh on ourselves for that.
Yeah, I don't mean to be harsh on mini painters. I do not think, just to state this explicitly, that the majority of minis we see painted needs to make some bold socio-economic political claims. In fact, I want the opposite of that. I would like it to stay more lighthearted and fun, just because personally that's what I want to paint. But that is an element that can make someone react that is divorced from aesthetics and design and personal history and stuff like that. It's like, okay, I see that, I feel a thing, it's making me have a reaction. And so I think that is definitely a valid, definition of what art could be. Another thing that you have listed down here is, when you say innovative use of color, I want to say just innovation in general. There was that one time when we saw, I forget who painted it. Help me remember this. A guy who painted a bust, and he worked with brush strokes in a super creative way, where the actual physical 3D brush strokes were coming off of this bust of, I think, Mads Mikkelsen. And like when viewed from a certain direction, it kind of just felt like a swirl of like color miasma. It was crazy. And then when you turned it a little bit, then you could see the whole 3D effect. And that was art, and that was art just simply because of how innovative and different and how much it stands out from the pack and stuff like that. And again, that made you feel something. So yeah, it's not just about making it some kind of statement about, the current climate of the world. I think it is just kind of getting a reaction.
Yeah. I think innovation is a strong word, but that also carries a lot of weight too, a lot of pressure on yourself. It's like, well, if I'm not doing something that's never been done before, it's not art. And that is taking a wider look at art. That is the most ridiculous take to make. Every single piece of art could be a song, could be a movie, could be a painting, could be anything, is inspired by, is learned from, is taken from someone that came before you. So it's not about that it has to be something that's never visually been seen before. It could be, I'm inspired by Da Vinci's form of painting or sculpting, and I'm trying to pull that inspiration into our miniature world. And it's an innovative take because maybe I've not seen that done before. Or the way I choose this bits from Brahm, and this bits from Da Vinci, and this bits from Frank Frazetta, pulling those together to become a new thing, that is innovation, right? And it is not taken in a vacuum. No art is made in a vacuum. Music is such a great example of that. You can draw a direct line of just about every form of music and how it is an evolution of beg, borrow, and stealing from saying that it's something that's been done before. And that doesn't take away from it. It's showing your own take on something and your own evolution or innovative way to approach it in a way that you find satisfying for you to create. And that's that. So yeah, that can be color, that can be texture, that can be light. Whatever form of drama that you want to bring to something is that. And it can be that silky smoothness that just doesn't feel like it's an actual physical painted model. It looks like a 2D art piece, right? Like that's it too. Like I think heavy metal box painting, especially the way that they do it these days, that is art, because that is so difficult to achieve. And that smoothness looks like captured in the correct environment of taking a picture of some of those models. They look like they're a digital render. Like that's impressive in and of itself. And I consider that art, and you don't have to consider that art. That's okay too. Everyone can have their own opinion. But yeah, I think that innovation is big. One thing that I kind of drawn to and trying to figure out ways to approach this conversation was what I put in quotes was pushing beyond the sculpt, because we're in a really unique medium with this, is that we're making art on top of somebody else's art. The art is the sculpture. The art is the blank canvas isn't a two-dimensional white square. It is something that somebody else created. And so that's where I think a lot of the hitch in the situation becomes, because I'm just painting a coloring book of the real art. The real art is the sculpture. And so we have to ask about ourselves of how do we push beyond? And so the couple of different ways that I wrote down was telling a story without building a scene versus telling a story with building a scene. So I can create a small diorama, a scene, a chopped up version, the Roman Lapat shadow box version of art, where I create these things to make a new version of them in a different environment, in a different way, telling a different story that just the model assembled out of the box does not tell. That is art. That is pushing things in a new way to see the perspective, see the story I'm trying to tell you. Creating a scene. So that's, anytime somebody does that, I can consider that art. Now, how do you do that? How do you do that with just something out of the box? Well, how do you tell a story or build a scene that is not strictly accentuating what the sculpt is, but telling it in a new way through your use of paint that tells a more defined story, a very specific story, only through paint? And that is difficult to achieve. But we've seen models where it's like there's a bust where it's like we've seen it where it's the goblin, and it's mostly all painted dark, and there's one slit of light that runs right down the center of the piece. Yeah. And that model wasn't sculpted to make it look like it's peering through a doorway, but that artist painted it as such. So there is not adding to the scene, there is using paint to tell a specific story. And that is a way to use that to tell a story with art as well.
Yeah, that's Arnaud Lathero, who painted that awesome goblin hiding behind the door. He also paints a bunch of incredible stuff. If you're in need of inspiration, check him out. But let's have the real conversation right now. I think I can tell that you are struggling or taking issue with an element of this question, and I want to dig into that. I want to figure out what about this is frustrating or annoying or whatever it may be to you.
I think what we've seen historically is making an ivory tower of art and saying that what we do as a person that works a full-time job, has got 3 kids and gets to paint once or twice a week, then that's not considered art. It's not worthy. And I think that only hurts this art form and what we do, and puts down all of us, even when that's not your not intention is to be cruel or to be a mean random person on the internet. But I think we need to hold ourselves up higher and hold our chin up in saying that what we do, even if we're just learning, even if we make mistakes and we can't paint in the lines every time or whatever, what you're doing is on the road to art. Okay, it could be the very first steps. You could be somewhere down your journey in art, but I still view it as art. And I think if we don't ourselves say, hey, what we do is art, that doesn't mean I'm amazing artist. That's saying that what we do is art. If we don't say that for ourselves, how can we expect others outside to view it as such? And I think that it starts with us. And that's where I get issues where it's like your perception of what is art maybe needs to have a deeper conversation rather than claiming X is art, Y is not art without first coming to your own internal conversation with it.
If something is labeled as not art, does that make it inherently bad?
No, I don't think it makes it inherently bad. I think what it does is it starts off with a negative connotation with it, though. If you label something in the negative form, instead of saying this is not art, don't say that at all. Say this is a wonderful example of craftsmanship or a craft or something like that. Show it on the positive instead of the negative. Because if we focus on that's not, then it's like it permeates everything we do with a negative vibe. And what we're doing is creating here. And creating is about exploration and fun and creativity and self-expression. And if we kind of like poison that a bit, like I feel like it doesn't help any of us. And it puts something on our shoulders or putting that weight of it needing to be something grandeur for it to be considered art. It's not helping. It's not helping any of us, right?
Yeah. Do you think that many painters are too focused on what is art and what is not art, and furthermore, like what belongs in the hobby and what doesn't belong in the hobby and stuff like that?
I think for most of us, the thought doesn't cross our minds very often.
Yeah.
I think we're here. Well, there's a sweet new box. I want to paint it up because I just love the models
100%.
and I just want to do it for the joy of painting, or I want to do it for a game. I think someone that paints up a full 2,000 point army that tells their story of like, this is my faction and this is the display board I did, or this is what reasons why I picked the colors that they picked. Those are all artistic choices. Those are all direction that you made through your inspiration and what you wanted to create, and you did it. The final outcome of how well technically executed it is a separate conversation. But the whole process you went through is a process that every artist goes through. So you don't have to consider it art. You don't have to think about yourself as an artist while you're doing it, but that doesn't mean that it's not, right? And that's kind of the joy of this. We don't have to think about it that way. And I don't want to put the weight on myself of saying it's, oh, this is art and this isn't art. But I think because most of us don't think about it that way, when the conversation or the person that broaches a topic like this comes up, we don't think about it that way. So our default is, no, it's not art because I didn't think about it as art when I was painting that Space Marine. So that means it's not. Right?
When was the last time you painted a figure and you were like, oh, I feel like an artist, or this feels like a piece of art?
Actually, when I wrote my script yesterday for the models that I painted that we showed off earlier, there's a line in there that says, this is the first time in a long time that I look at the thing, or when I was actually in the process of painting the second model, that I'm like, this feels very artsy. This feels like I'm doing art. So this is kind of a timely kind of conversation for us because I just felt that. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that this is the only time I've done art in the last month or 6 months or 6 years or whatever. Like it doesn't mean that. It just felt like I was like doing something outside of my comfort zone, experimenting with things in a different way that I have not done before, testing things out, being interested in how the way color and light worked. That felt artsy to me. And that wasn't my intention going in. I wasn't trying to achieve some great meaning in this. I just had that feeling like, oh. But I don't think you need that feeling for it to be that either. But it's just sometimes you occasionally be like, oh, wow. Like, oh, that's kind of fun. And just take a moment, step back and say, I enjoyed that process. Why did I enjoy that process? I think if more of us did that, I think we would sit back and be, why we enjoyed that is because we created something that feels unique to us. That's where a lot of satisfaction comes in this hobby, is creating something that is solely unique to us. And that is making art. So you were doing it whether you thought about it or not, I guess.
Okay.
In my opinion. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe people don't think that same way as me.
So the creation of something that is, did you say unique to us or satisfying to us? That was your definition of art?
Yeah, sure. That sounds good. We'll go with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's what's so cool about this is like you could have the exact same model, the exact same paints, every exact same tool, and yours would look different than mine. It would look different than the next person's, the next person's, the next person. You could follow the exact same step-by-step instructions, and they would not be identical copies. And that's what makes them wholly unique pieces in the world, that there will never be another like that. And that feels like art to me.
If the thing that you're creating that's unique, if it has like a function or a purpose, like a tool, does that make it feel less artistic?
I mean, there's a toy shop in Wabasha, Minnesota called Lark Toys. I've been going there since I was a little kid. And they used to make wooden toys. And they still do some of that, but then now there's kind of like a big toy shop with a bookstore and an ice cream parlor or whatever. But what they've had since I think the late 70s, early 80s is a massive carousel. And every one of the animals on the carousel is hand carved, and they're all different animals. And they're all different environments. You can still see all the chisel marks where not everything is smooth. They're all hand stained. They're gorgeous. Mm-hmm. They are gorgeous works of art. It is a working carousel, and little kids ride on the animals. So let me ask you that. Are each of those a work of art or not? Because they are part of a functioning thing that has a purpose, and they serve that purpose. I still think it's art. Something can be a functioning thing. It can be a chair. A chair can be a work of art that functions as a chair. Does that mean every chair is a work of art? That's up for you to determine. I would say probably not. But there's form over function, right? So does it have a form that evokes some response? And does it also serve function? So somewhere on that teeter-totter of form and function, something, in my opinion, can be art.
To answer the question, I would say that carousel is probably art, and maybe to discuss like the most base definition of maybe what separates art from just something that's created for utility is the intention of the creator.
Sure.
If like while you're painting a mini, if at no point do you have a creative thought, which I don't even know if that's possible, does that make that model less artistic? And furthermore, can a viewer even tell? And so,
right.
I guess if I have to think about this, it's like, okay, what's an example of painting a model where you're not really making an artistic choice, and it's maybe mostly while you're batch painting something you've painted 100 times before, but even then, you've made those artistic choices just in the past, and you're just leaning on them again. I honestly can't think of a single thing I would do in this hobby that's totally divorced from making some creative choice at some point in the process, So maybe to answer this question, I feel like all minis in our hobby are some form of art, but I don't know if you had to like quantify art, like these Nurgle guys you painted, they're 80% art. And the guy that I'm painting right now, and I have no problem admitting this, it does not feel very artistic. It's more of an expression of my recent love of vintage sci-fi. And like, also I just love retro futurism. I like all these things that this game represents. And like the model, I don't know if it feels artistic necessarily. It's more of just an expression of that joy that I have for this genre of media.
I think that because of that, because you care and because you're invested in another way, that shows itself in what you create. I think if you painted a different model that you didn't have the strong connection to or the passion for, even if it's just short-lived, who knows? It's a different thing. There's a different level of your energy or that like a bit of you that goes into it that changes. And that that is, I think that's art. I think it shows. I think looking at that piece, it looks like thought and care and purpose went into it. and that's art. And it's tough too because you don't like, I could paint a Space Marine and I could say that is 0% art. And then I put it on the shelf and my aunt comes downstairs and she disagrees with me entirely. And she says, no, that's absolutely art. And neither of you is wrong because it's all a personal thing. I think the tough part is that very often in this hobby, we get into the very technical, the very scientific, the very step-based process to try to improve, to try to replicate, to try to create something of quality. And that is the opposite mindset of the artistic mindset, right? It is not about the scientific side and the steps and the right and wrong. It's just about the creation. And because those are so kind of traditionally removed from each other, it's hard to go from our mindset of very technical based and to also consider that other side of our brain is always working in the background. And because we're not conscious with it, we think it doesn't exist or we think it's not as worthy or as valuable. It absolutely is. We're trying to technically execute, people. We're trying to get this thing to not look like hot garbo. And because we're so focused on that when we're painting our models, we don't think about it that way. And so our brain doesn't go that way. And that's there's nothing wrong with that, you know. That's how you grow. That's how you improve. That's how whatever. But like, I think you guys are all pretty great artists.
Maybe we can. I don't know if there's. I'm curious. Does it matter? You know, does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter
if we look at a thing and we think this is art or this is not art. Is that an individual choice?
Yeah, I think it's an individual choice. And I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if what brings you joy and brings you passion and connects you to creating is what it is. It doesn't matter how you define it and what label you put on it. I don't think that matters at all. I think that all that matters is that you're creating what you want to create. And then your path will inevitably be interesting and unique only to you because of your journey of creation. You don't have to define it. You don't have to think it's art at all. You could be adamantly opposed to every Space Marine that you've created is art. You could say absolutely not. That's okay. If that brings you joy, that's what that's the intention. So, yeah.
Do you think that artists only like purpose, or not only, I guess that's a hard way to say this, but do you think it's the most important thing for artists to do is to chase joy, and that art is never a cross to bear? Like, I'm going to do this thing because it's important for something outside of my own personal enjoyment. Is that ever a thing?
I think so. I think because, I mean, joy is most closely associated with this hobby because it's a hobby about joy.
Right.
But, you know, if you are trying to create something that it creates a statement that's different than that, it's about suffering or angst or loss or whatever, like, yeah, then that is, if that's what you are feeling and that is what you feel like you need to get out of yourself, then that will be a part of your creative process. And that's, you know, that's part of it. Yeah.
Have you ever?
It's just not something we typically deal with in this hobby, but it absolutely happens.
Have you ever done that? I was going to ask you that same question.
I did that when I painted my dog.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Holy shit. That was a painful process?
Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm curious. I feel like I so jealously guard having a good time while painting because I spent so much time not having a good time while painting, like whether it's a commission thing or a sponsorship thing, or I don't know. I have a very toxic relationship with just like feeling like I need to be doing something when in reality I don't need to be doing something. And so I really push away from that feeling as often as I can and just try to have fun. And so I feel like I've never felt like when I'm doing something that it's a cross to bear or that I need to be doing that. It's important for something outside of myself. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think you have to. I don't think it's something you push on yourself. But if it's a way to work through something, or like it happens organically, I think would be the thing.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
like I didn't go into that painting of my dog to think I was going to feel all the feels. But
Right.
it happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, and that's like there is absolutely like we choose this hobby because of the joy that it brings to us. That we're a weird niche of people that just really enjoy that process of creating something, and whether we're using it for a game or we just love to have these little figures stacked up on our shelves, or we give them as gifts, or whatever we use them for. We're the minority in the world that enjoy that. And so if you enjoy that, that's why you do it. You may explore different areas of it at some point in your painting journey if you stick with it, whether that show different emotions or work through different things or some therapeutic reasons. But joy is, I think, is really the bloodline that keeps us in this.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So.
Well, I appreciate you letting me question you here.
Yeah, I didn't know I had that much to say. I wrote down 4 fucking board games. We talked about all sorts of shit. All sorts of shit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really curious, Goodie PPs, on your thought. Have you thought much about this? You know, is this something that you've pondered over, or what is your initial reaction after just like maybe you haven't thought about it, and then we're talking about it, and now you got thoughts? I do want to hear them. We want to read your comments and see what you think about this. I think my biggest takeaway in all of this is to just not undermine or sell yourself short. And I think that's the biggest thing, is the imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I think there is some connection of us thinking what we create personally is an art, because that puts too much of we're saying too many good things about ourselves. And that's not what this is about. I'm just trying to make sure that that's clear, that what you do is art, and that's okay if you don't think so. But I think so.
Yeah. And maybe furthermore, it doesn't matter if it's art. That's not merely.
Yeah.
Who cares? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who cares?
All right.
Who cares?
Welcome to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with us all the way to the end. We appreciate your attention span. If you want to support the podcast, there are a number of ways that you can do that, both free and not free. Some free ways are you can watch our podcast on YouTube with ads enabled. You can give us a rating wherever you're listening to our podcast, whether that's on Spotify or Google Podcasts or Stitcher or Apple Podcasts. You can also share our podcast with anyone you think might enjoy it. Other nerd friends, your mom, your dad, your dog, you know, anyone that's got ears and a functioning brain is going to love us because we're awesome, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If you have some cash to spend and you want to support our podcast, you can do that with Patreon. You get access to an extended episode, and that has been going on for every episode since the beginning of the podcast. So if you want just a metric shitload of extra TUP, seriously, we're on season 6, I think, right now. Episode 24,
So many seasons.
Almost season 7. We've been doing that since the very beginning. Lots of extra content there to listen to. You also can suggest topics like Gray did with this episode, and we also give you feedback like we did earlier with that lovely New Zealander man whose name escapes me at the moment. Patreon's a great way to do that. Campbell. You can also pick up some of our merch we have on Teespring, linked down in the show notes or description below, depending on where you are listening. That's t-shirts, that's mugs with our logo on it, that's sweatpants, all kinds of fun stuff.
Whether you think you're an artist or not, you're still awesome because you're here, because that means you got good taste because you listen to this podcast. And we're going to be back in 2 weeks with another fun episode as we kind of ratchet up towards the holidays. So we look forward to hanging out with you then and there. Until then, we will catch you on the
flop.